Good morning. Let's go back to May 4th, 1493, and explore how the doctrine of discovery, which was put into effect through the Catholic Church via Papal Bull at the time, still has an impact on First Nations and Indigenous issues, be that in Canada or around the world. And so part of what's led me to be curious about this doctrine of discovery is to notice the energy of racism that is so indicative in white privileged communities, and to wonder why and where has this racism come from. And about 7 years ago, I was talking with a friend of mine, and she was telling me how some of the 13 Indigenous grandmothers had made this journey to Rome in an attempt to have an audience with the Pope and to have this Papal Bull of 1493 publicly rescinded. And they weren't able to have an audience with him at the time. And when I was inquiring to her as to what it was about, and she said it basically gave the colonizers the legality to take the lands of the savages, barbarians, or heathens because they were not Christian and therefore were not considered essentially human beings, right? Essentially worthy of being in possession of said lands. And of course, I was shocked at the time. I thought, well, how could that be? How could there be a law? How could there be something that actually was put into place and that our ancestors followed? You know, where's the humanity in that? And as I explored and did some research via Google, I came to recognize that what it was called, the bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited by Christian rulers, and declared that the Catholic faith and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere increased and spread, that the health of souls be cared for, and that barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. And there was this Papal Bull and others before that went right to the heart of the recognition that savages, heathens, or barbarians had no power. And you got to remember, this is right near the time of the witch burnings too. And so the power that the Catholic Church was having on dominating, whether it was Europe or whether it was the lands across the sea, was huge. And so how this impacts Canada in 1763, there was a royal proclamation in Canada that was at the end of the war between France and England. And so France lost that war. And in that royal proclamation, it was said that the Indigenous people could occupy and possess their land, the lands that were given to them. This is before some treaties were made, but they could not sell it. So they weren't given title to the land. And though the Indigenous people had this idea or expectation of sovereignty, they were not given any sovereignty. And they were not deemed to be capable of being civilized enough to maintain that sovereignty. And the intentions all along behind the Crown was to assimilate First Nations into the country of Canada, into their way of seeing and being in the world. All right, and so if we move forward in time, and these are parts that I'm not really good at, and so I'm absolutely going to encourage you to do your own research. But as we move forward in time, and we look at laws that are happening within Indigenous affairs in Canada, and how we're still in this place of struggling where First Nations people don't actually have control over their land. They, you know, however many years later, there's still this idea that they wouldn't be able to care for or govern themselves. And so through putting this mini vlog out there, I would really appreciate any ideas that other people come across on the web that have to do with the doctrine of discovery, and any ways that they feel that they have been impacted by it, and how us in the I was going to say shamanic communities, as well as people who may be in that place of privilege and have the time and opportunity to focus on how we can make amends, what could that look like? Okay, I look forward to hearing from you.